Okay, this interview is being recorded at Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona on May 2023. And this is happening in the context of the unit of Celia Hoyles in the IGMAI Amor project. Thank you. Thank you very much, dear Celia, for being here. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the idea of this module 4 in the unit, taking place in the form of an interview or a kind of discussion, a conversation with me. Thank you very much. I think this is a great idea. And well, you people may have watched modules 0, 1, 2, and 3. And so this last module, it's like an opportunity of raising some new issues, some new concerns about the work that you have been engaged in mathematics education, and maybe to bring in new emphasis on some of the explanations in the former modules. Mm-hmm. So my first question is very general question, but I think you could just tell us what has been keeping you in mathematics education for all these years, I should say, all these decades.
All these decades, yes, a long time.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you very much, Nuria, for organizing this and making the opportunity for me to come here to you and your university in Barcelona, making me feel so welcome. Well, in a way, that's exactly why being in maths education research has been so fruitful, because you have the chance to travel, to meet people, to learn new things, because mathematics is something I feel very passionate about. I've always enjoyed it. I've always done well in it. But maths education is changing dramatically. If you just look back over the decades, as you say, where I have been involved, how things have changed. You know, from the early days where everybody simply wrote on the blackboard their mathematics when they were teaching, and now more and more people are using digital devices. When Richard Noss and I first started talking about programming way back in the 80s, there was very few people were using. They used to say, wouldn't it be wonderful if we had one computer per classroom? And now everybody has a computer in their hand. Now this has advantages for mathematics education, but also disadvantages. But I also think this means that you're never doing the same thing. We always have to reflect together, what is the new context? How can we exploit it? Keeping mathematics at the center. I think we have to take into account the new context, but there is something stable and invariant about mathematical knowledge, and we need to try and make sure in the new context, with the new digital devices, that we help learners access it and enjoy it in the way that we have.
Thank you very much. So you've been, you mentioned, you used the expression of keeping mathematics at the center.
Yes.
And so can I follow up a bit that expression to talk about keeping vocational education and mathematics in the workplace at the center of mathematics education? So in your former modules, you slightly mention the workplace, but it's not the focus in the former modules, because you talk about computational thinking, you talk about mathematical reasoning, but I think that the workplace and the mathematics and what we can learn from the mathematics in the workplace to improve and better understand mathematics education, mathematical curricula for all, and for all groups in society and for society. I think that we could learn more from vocational education and mathematics in the workplace, and in a way to have also those topics at the center in a way. So you've been working a lot on those topics, on those issues. So Could you just maybe share a bit some of the lessons that you've been learning around mathematics in the workplace, that can be lessons that in a way can inform mathematical curricula, mathematics teaching?
Yeah, thank you. I think vocational education is a very fruitful and rich place for mathematics education research, but I suspect it's never been in the centre. I suspect it might never be. It might, but I may be talking from an English point of view. But I think more and more it is becoming really important, particularly in my country, because there is a move that everybody should study mathematics to 18 and be better prepared for the workplace, because people complain, you know, they learn all this mathematics and they go in the workplace and they don't know anything and they have to relearn it. So I think it's very topical now. And I think what I would like to just refer you to, if I may, a project I did a long time ago now, quite a long time ago, with Richard Noss, Arthur Backer and Philip Kent in London. And we looked at the mathematics in workplaces, particularly those workplaces that were very much becoming more governed by computer systems. They were becoming automated in order to make them more efficient. And I think that process has accelerated over the last decade, where more and more stuff is being automated, being put underneath the hood of the computer, and you need fewer people. So this has become a bit of an issue about what skills do you want. So I just wanted to share with you just a couple of slides from that project. I tell you something, it's such an interesting work to do, to move from the university to the different workplaces. I'm quite a curious person, and I like to know what's going on. So you go into these factories and they are like a new world, a different place. And we went into a factory where they were manufacturing cling film, you know, that film that you stretch over your food. And it's mainly automated, but it has these process capability measures. And this is something that the workers had to learn about. What the idea was that they'd understand what they were doing as well as just doing it. And I want to just show you, can I show you a slide? And this is what we saw on the shop floor of the training of the workers. They weren't the shop floor workers like the managers, the team leaders. And this is, look at the first one, CP it's called, USL minus LSL over 6 sigma. Now, the USL is the upper specification limit, the LSL is the lower specification limit, and sigma is standard deviation. Now, specification limit is when you are manufacturing something, say it's a bag of crisps, its weight has to be above a certain weight and below a certain weight. It's a very, you can't have it completely consistent because of random variation, but you mustn't have too much and you mustn't have too little. And that's what you mean. That's the specifications limit. But when you manufacture something, there is always deviation, and that's your standard deviation. Now, what struck us was that the people, the guys, and they were mainly men, who were learning this, they had no idea whatsoever what these formula meant. But they had to learn them a little bit. And I just wanted to show you, there was work-based training. We went to the factory, we talked to people, we found out what they thought, and then we went to their training, and then we did our own training. And this is a worksheet from their training. It's very strange because those graphs on the left, they are normal distributions, and they're not quite like normal distributions. They're sort of a semicircle. That's from looking from a mathematical eye. And that says what CP. CP is 1 when the distribution fits exactly the specification limit. CP is 3, the second one down, where you can get your normal distribution in 3 times. So that's what the worksheets they were given. So what I want to take from this that we found, when you go into these different workplaces, They are using mathematical tools, and often they're using it in a way that I had no idea why they were doing it and what these numbers meant. So our job, which we always do in our research, is we try and find out what they're doing and try and build digital tools. We call them technology enhanced boundary objects, TBOs, to help them understand. So I'm just going to give you a glimpse of this tool. So what is CP? You've got the specification limits, so the lines at the front and the back, the top and the bottom. You've got your normal distribution, a nice one this time. And CP is the length of the blue bar, which is the difference between the specification limits, divided by the 6 times the standard deviation. And you can see that's the length of the yellow one. Now, in the digital technology, you can move those specifications about. So you could see, if you move them, you can make that CP1. So the idea of this was, you're saying, well, what do these numbers, these algebraic numbers mean? And the formula means moving that so that specification limits stay the same, but you can move your distribution to be as tight as possible. And that is the plan with process control. And I just want to give you words of our supervisors, because we interviewed the supervisors, the shop floor workers, because you talk about vocational education. These people are not going to be mathematicians, but they have to use maths. And the supervisors really want them to understand the maths that they're using, but they don't necessarily have the tools to help them. So this is what one supervisor said. This was in the interview this was in this film. She said, one thing I found was that the guys thought that came as a surprise was they didn't appreciate that when we blew a bubble, when you have your cling film, it's blown into a huge bubble to stretch it to become very thin. That the film that was around the bubble was being stretched in 2 dimensions. They only controlled one. The other one was controlled by the computer. And they didn't recognize this transverse stretching. They only recognized the machine direction. And this is a general thing that, that we found in our project, that the things that are done by the computer are somehow become invisible. They only recognize the things that they moved. And this, I think, is a general lesson for workplace studies. So much of what happens is it's invisible, and our jobs as educators in vocational education is to make it visible so the workers have some control over what they're doing. And so that's what we tried to do. So I want to just pause on this metaphor of boundaries, because we all have boundaries, we all speak different languages. So when you're going into the workplace, you have the managers, they're the ones who are quite well qualified. You have the researchers and the process engineers, they're the ones who are usually statisticians or looking at making the processes more efficient. And then you have the operators. And you have to develop a language to cross the boundaries between those people. And I think that's the same in all areas of maths education. There are maths educators, there are teachers, and there are researchers like us, and we have to develop a language to talk to them. It's different, we're in different contexts. You have mathematicians who have their own view, vocational educators who have their own view, and we have to find a language to discuss their needs and in maths education research. And we had a big project after our project, we worked in engineering, we worked in food processing, we worked in manufacturing, we worked in finance. All of these places are full of mathematical objects that are often invisible under the computer, but they have to deal with them. And a lot of people say, why do you need any mathematics? The computer will do it. But believe me, you do need, but you need to understand what the language of the computer system is. So we made a presentation, and the lecture theatre was full of people from these workplace. We had presentations from people on the workplace. And in the audience was the chief executive of Sealed Air, that they're ones who made that cling film. And I just wanted to transcribe what he said to us at the end. He said, I think that the projects were absolutely excellent. Well, we like that, obviously. The work has been outstanding. But I think there's one part of this that goes beyond the mathematical side, which has been the focus. The soft side of what the end user gains, that's what he means by the operators. The empowerment, the job satisfaction that the operator gains. And I think this is really one of the great parts of the project and all that has gone before. So it was surprised us because we weren't looking at the soft side. We were looking at how they could be better understand those mathematical formulae. And I think it brings us back to this idea that we need people to have more empowerment, to understand what they're doing more. And that has been our job. And I know your job too. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. This reminds me of the different mathematics, street mathematics, Teresina Nunes, and workplace mathematics, school mathematics. But of course, there is more mathematics beyond school mathematics, and we need to connect them and the boundaries. And this idea of the languages, I like this very much because I think it really applies to all the different domains in mathematical education when we work with other people with other interests or with other involved in different tasks. And this idea that you also mentioned about making visible the mathematics and making visible, this idea of making visible even the technology or the knowledge, and this makes me think a lot about digital technologies these days, and what we need to make visible and what we need not to make visible and to put at the front or to put behind, because it's of course it's about mathematics and about mathematics education, and so sometimes technology needs to be maybe transparent in a way, but some other times we need to make visible what digital technologies, how they are mediating the mathematical activity and the mathematical education choices or decisions. But okay, but this is
right.
right. And but okay, let's talk a bit about technology, digital technologies, because this is 2023 and we are in the post-COVID world, and many things happened, and the digital divide, the unequal access to the different technologies here and there, the different challenges and tensions that the COVID period and the post-COVID period are posing to us as mathematics educations are many. And I could love to listen to your understanding of these challenges and tensions of mathematics education in this post-COVID digital era, if I can call it like that.
Yeah, goodness knows. I mean, it's huge. When we look back at lockdown, we used to interact a bit on Zoom or Teams on lockdown, and when you look back, you think, how did you manage? How did everybody manage? And people managed very differently, depending, I think, on their access to digital technology and the web and ways to interact. Because let's say that education is about interaction. And if you're all on your own with your maths worksheet, with nobody to help you, it's very lonely and very, it's not good for your mental health, I don't think, if you don't know what to do. So I think schools and teachers did a huge job in England, and I'm sure here in Spain and across the world, in giving work so students could access it at home. But a lot of students didn't know how to access it, and their parents or their carers or at home didn't know how to help them. So I think one of the upsides might be a huge appreciation of schools and teachers, because they realize, that it's not quite so easy. You've got this maths worksheet, I don't know how to do it. And normally you have people you can interact with, and particularly the teachers. So that might be the upside. The other upside, for me, who works in digital technology, undoubtedly everybody sees there is potential. We cannot walk about without digital technology and our mobile phones. It may be too stressful a bit in a way, because everything you have, you can have it, you can look at it, you can play with it, you can explore in ways that was not possible. I think nobody would say that you don't need any digital tools. Everybody now realizes you do. And the question is, as you say, our job is to make sure that the tools that are available to our learners have a strong mathematical focus and are really available to all. And this actually brings us to looking at teacher education and making sure how they could best exploit them themselves. And when we first started using digital tools way back, there really was very little mathematical software. So we used programming languages. We started with Logo, and but now there are other programming languages, and now there are wonderful software for exploring geometry, algebra, whatever. How much is used in classrooms, I'm not so sure. There is always this real barrier in terms of, because teaching is such a pressured job. You might want to get onto that. But I think in a simple way, you know, Nuria, I think what we've just got to do is give teachers the space so they can do it themselves. They can explore themselves with not too much pressure. Because they always used to say there's no availability. There is stuff, and there is stuff available. There are excellent resources available, probably too much. So I think now is the time to stop and think, well, let's just see how we can help teachers exploit these resources, whether in schools or colleges.
Yeah, I totally agree that we need to go in those directions. Now, I wanted to ask a few things about teaching and the needs of the teachers, but you mentioned this issue of the mental health, and so could I just ask you, because you've been working on math anxiety, and even in your earlier years, you started with work on emotions and attitudes from the side of the students, the learners, the school learners. And so let's talk a bit about the students today, and also in the past, and maybe in the future we will know how to reduce the struggling of like this feeling anxious. And so what do you think we can do? You've said you anticipated that working together, or having not being isolated in the mathematical activity, in the mathematical work, that could help to somehow overcome some of these feelings of anxiety. But math anxiety, it's like a big issue. What do you what which are your, I don't know if advices, recommendations? What do you think we could do better, or just do? So to reduce, as teacher educators, as teachers, as mathematics educators, what can be done to reduce or to overcome or to anticipate situations that would make the students not to enjoy the mathematics?
There's something, there's something about mathematics that I think is a bit special in terms of provoking this mathematics anxiety. It's the characteristics of our subject. It's very much right and wrong. And we know that there are gradations, but on the whole, it's right and wrong. There is something about not knowing where to start. You know, we all can sit here, we've got a mathematics problem, and I don't know, I'm asking you, I don't know how to begin. And we have this dread of a blank page. Well, I think in other subjects, at least you can write something to get going. I think we always say, Richard and I, just do something, put some numbers in, do something to get going, because there is this fear of not knowing which direction to go, and it being very public. And the added anxiety is mathematics, is the success of maths. Is everybody knows you have to do maths, you have to pass maths, it's in the workplace, it's in your job, you earn more money if you do more maths, we know that. So somehow it's a very high status thing. So if you are so not to be good, it's really affects your whole personality. So I think I certainly became aware of it in my PhD a long time ago when I interviewed students. I had no idea. I really didn't, how terrible some learners felt in when they were studying maths. They felt so terrible and hopeless. And so I think the first step is to raise the awareness of this. And then the second step, I think you just need good maths teaching. Try and reduce the pace and listen to the students and put them in collaboration. You know, if Celia's feeling very nervous, put her with Nuria and we will work together. So it's about collaboration, sharing, not make too much pressure. I think we have a long way to go. And in fact, we're a group of us are starting what's called a Maths Anxiety Trust in England. It's beginning. I think there's some really good research now that will help this. I've always thought that digital technologies could help, could make it worse, but could help because got something you can do. Instead of having a sheet of paper, you put something on your computer and you can get feedback. And this idea of trying and feedback and learning together. So you're getting feedback from the computer instead of always just looking and you don't know what to do. So I do think there are strategies we can use. I do think it's a project that needs more research, and I do think that is happening now. And I want to mention now, it's not quite about anxiety, but there is this thing called ChatGPT that is now taking over the world. This is OpenAI, and this is yet a new challenge. It's what I said, everything changes all the time. We now have all these sort of chat things that will do your mathematics for you. And quite well, actually. If you give it questions, it will give you answers. It will write an essay for you. It will do your assignment for you. If you give it the right things, I want to write an assignment on maths education in 2023. What do I put in it? It will give me incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And so we don't say, oh, this is dreadful. What can we do? We have to think, how can we, as researchers in maths education, recognize we're in this new digital age where all our students are using it? We can't ban it, we have to exploit it to see how can we use this new thing that is going to transform maths education even more. And there is a big project now going on in England, run by the Royal Society. It's called Mathematical Futures. And it's a good exercise of imagination. What do we want in the future? Supposing you had the opportunity to change all the mathematics, all the curriculum, start again with all the digital tools available, what would you do? We're all talking and coming up with scenarios, but there are some things that we think we have to keep. For me, it's structure and variables and all that history of mathematical proving that we have to somehow retain. But which are the bits that are important?
That's a very good question. And in this direction, you've been doing during this years you've been involved in design experiments, but also in large large scale studies with Dietmar, with Richard, with Lulu, and well, I'm missing names, for sure. So going back to the teachers and the teaching, what is that we can learn from all those studies and this question that you posed right now that can inform policies for professional development policies in mathematics education, because you've been also very active in policy, not only in research and practice, but also in policy. So all what we know about the students' mathematical reasoning, all that we know about what is good teaching, if I can say it like that, in mathematics, all that we know about making mathematics more social in the classroom, so for to open up discussion and interaction, and to reduce the blank page situation. And so what is that can be introduced and can be interpreted in the form of professional development content? Is that too big?
Yeah, I mean, it is a big question. I mean, I think, well, it has to have an unerring focus on the mathematics and what are teachers, what are the challenges they're going to face with their students. So I think although everything is changing, we know that students will have difficulty, say, understanding beginning algebra. This is something that's unerring. You know, what is this X? What is this Y? What does it mean? The idea of variable. So I think I would always start professional development with something that we know from maths educational research. Maybe, you know, taking some examples from different researchers from over the world. I would start with that and then say, okay, we think that students will have great difficulty. In our proof project, it's amazing how difficult these were 15-year-old students found some really quite simple logical chains of deduction. I was surprised, and I thought, you know, they'd be able to. It is much more challenging than we tend to think. So I would always start there and then move outwards to think about the context about, okay, what do we do about it? Maybe look at some of the curriculum development projects that have been developed across the world and look at some of the research that's been undertaken. So, I mean, but there's always the challenge with professional development, which is not very interesting, but there's never time. I'm sure every country has this problem. How do you do it? Maybe something that can be done more online is more achievable, but it's not so agreeable in terms of, I think teachers actually have great difficulty finding the time to engage with that, and they don't really want to go to courses, and yet sometimes when they go to the courses and they're meeting other teachers and they're all playing with some mathematics together, they really appreciate that. So it's a balance in terms of how we do it. But we've got a shortage of well-qualified maths teachers in England, and I think that we've got to face that. And I don't know, it's a challenging job at the moment, actually.
In that direction, do you think that issues of assessment should be also addressed in PD, in professional development initiative? Because this issue of assessment, sometimes we talk about the learning, we talk about the teaching, but again, connected with this math anxiety and with the challenges of the teachers and the teaching to the test, the many pressures. So how can assessment, you've been working and working on assessment issues, and you've been taking some leadership in the National Center for Excellence in the teaching of mathematics. Is that the name?
It's still going on, and it's a terrible title.
Yeah.
But still, we just call it NCETM now.
Okay. So was assessment at that time when you started it? Was assessment a main issue? Is it a main issue now? Is assessment enough at the center?
No, it's the assessment is done in England in a very funny way. We have what we call examination boards, awarding body who do all the assessment. But my personal opinion, and I'm not a researcher in assessment, you need reliable assessment to obviously monitor the system. But too much of monitoring the system falls on the student, and it monitors the student. And when in England, they do far too much testing. And so they're doing a testing mainly to make sure that the schools are doing their job properly. But it's the students who are doing it. And we have got too much assessment, I think. We lose a lot of teaching time because you're doing all, as you say, training for the test. So I think it might be that we can actually harness digital technologies so the students are working in their classroom. It could be very stressful, I'm not sure, but I was thinking something can work in their classroom and it could support teacher assessment without adding to their burden. Because we always had teacher assessment, but it's become yet another thing that adds to their job and their time, marking. Give that, ChatGPT will mark, give that to somebody else, just monitor to make sure they get it right, because sometimes they don't. But I think that would be a way, let's just exploit it to say, let the teacher do what the teacher's good at, which is interacting with the students, suggesting what they do, finding where they should go next, and then take some of the burden of the marking and the assessment. This is what I'm sure can be done. I know it can be done. And then, okay, and then you could share, you could say, look, Nouri's done this, Celia's done that, let's have a look at that. And the digital technology, the ChatGPT or whatever, can say, let's just share what their answers are. Why has Nouria got 10 and Celia's only got 2? Let's just discuss it. So you could use it as a way to support the teacher. So they don't have to do so not many teachers like marking, do they? But you do need to mark and you need to assess the progress. So this is something that I would outsource. And I think we can do that now. Well, it'd be a wonderful research project to do that in the right way.
So yeah, teachers, they are diverse. And well, we are all diverse. Researchers, we are diverse in the community. And we all learn by contrast because we are diverse. And,
absolutely.
But I would like to focus now a bit on the diversity of the students, of the school learners. Because, and again, with this metaphor of the center, and there are many groups that are marginalized for a variety of reasons in school mathematics in particular. And so we've been learning from the different domains and the different projects in mathematics education of ways to enact the participation and the reasoning, the mathematical reasoning of all the students. But still, it still persists some kind of certain groups of students who are linguistically disadvantaged or socially disadvantaged or different types of disadvantage in the school or in society. You still find that there is this history of being not left behind, but just not getting engaged, not participating in mathematics. So how can we change the discourses in the research or in the practice or in the policy? How can we change the discourses so that we can give some priority to all the groups, to have all the groups in the data, in the projects, in
I understand. It's very.
Oh.
It's something like, I mean, that's in a way why we talk about programming. In that, I can give you lots of anecdotal examples when we have been to classrooms, we're teaching them Scratch, we're giving them Scratch math materials, and even I can give an example because nobody would ever know who this is. A teacher said, that girl, she's not very good. She was obviously very poor, very nervous, and yet she got involved in this project, and it was like a different world. She said, "Come and I can show you." So it's our job in a way to find a different way. As it happened, this was through programming in Scratch, just pulling a few blocks together, getting some positive results. It could be doing it different. It could be doing it through music. It could be doing it through. I think there are different ways that students could get motivated for maths. Some will just the traditional way, fine. But others, this little girl, it was just doing a little project, building some animals that made noises and walked across the screen. But it was her project and it worked. And she used a lot of mathematics to say, you know, if it gets to there, then bark. So she was doing stuff in a way that wasn't regarded as the place that she'd always failed. So my thought was maybe we just have to find a different way for some people. And then you can see the difference in their engagement. I don't know whether, is that what you have found? You know, you find a different way.
Yeah, and I'm counting on them. So on
Yes,
their
yes.
possibilities, and we can all start. We can all get engaged in the mathematics. So we can all participate in mathematical activity, and we are all mathematicians in a way. We can reason mathematically,
yes,
and
yes.
so yeah. But
And there will always be a spread. Not everybody's going to be brilliant, but I absolutely believe everyone can do better.
yeah,
Everyone could do better, and there will be always in mathematics somebody who's better than you. Doesn't matter. You know, you're doing what you want for your particular needs and goals. And but it's the same in every subject. There will be a spread. You know, I can't sing. I would love to be able to sing. I love opera, but at least I can enjoy music to some extent. But I don't have to be an opera singer. And I think it's exactly the same in math. We just have to make sure people enjoy what they do. And they're not stopped, because the thing about maths, it's so much a gateway, which we can't solve that. You know, to get certain jobs, you need a certain level of maths, and that's an issue. That's why everybody does it all the time. But we have to try and find a way that they will get into their jobs that they want, but they also don't get put off the subject for life.
yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with some final questions. Is that fine?
Yes,
Yeah.
fine, yeah,
Okay. Okay. So, well, you've been talking a lot about the future, but maybe just some final comments on some final words for those who are the younger than us. So early career researchers, new teachers, new teacher educators, younger people who are entering into this tremendous mathematics education community. What can we tell them? What can you tell them?
Well, I think, what can we tell them? I think it's a most wonderful career. I really do think if you can find the time and the energy to study hard, there is a lot to read, a lot to learn and get involved. You will have a wonderful chance to actually to understand maths education in different countries. That's something that is very, very interesting. If you go, I mean, Spain and England maybe are not that different, but I bet there are big differences. But if you go to other countries, how they perceive mathematics education, and trying to see our subject from the lens of different groups, whether they are, you know, rather poorer areas in Africa or South America, but they are all facing similar problems. So I think you will be starting on an amazingly interesting career. I was thinking, when I started, there were very few conferences, very little to read. There was Educational Studies in Maths, Journal of Research in Maths Education, that's it. Now you have many conferences, many different journals. And so which one you read and how you manage, is hard. But so you need a trusted mediator. If you're starting, you need to find in your local university or your wherever somebody you're going to start and somebody who's going to mentor you. Say, now what do you want to do? And so you've got to study, but you need to find a particular area that you really think you make a difference, whether it's language, which is really interesting, or computing, which is my area. Because actually the thing about computing, it's become huge, hasn't it? And every country is using programming, but doing it in different ways. Like I think in your country, do you do programming as part of maths, or is it a separate subject?
It's a
Separate subject. In England, it's a separate subject. In France, it's part of maths. In Ontario, in Canada, it's part of maths. They have to program. Now, all these different implementations are very interesting to study as maths educator researchers. So which is the better way? Well, there'll be pluses and minuses. But I mean, I think it's really looking at the international perspective, looking at our subject from the perspective of another country is really very rich. So I would say it's challenging, but there's a lot to do, but it's a very wonderful career.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Celia, we very much look forward your talk, your public talk today at the faculty on these issues of computing, and I think this is a very inspiring interview with your words. I think this will make us think further and think forward. Thank you. Any final?
I just want to make one final point.
Sure,
actually,
that's it.
Because I still am involved in research a little bit, not so much, but I am involved in policy because if you've been around decades, as you said, you remember things. So you say to the politicians, well, we did do this before, you know. But there's one thing that we are trying to do in my country, which I am very excited about. We're setting up an academy of the mathematical sciences. This academy is going to oversee, you know, the future research mathematicians, our future, you know, the best mathematicians in the country. Pure maths, applied maths, statistics, operational, all of that, and education. Yes. And why I'm so excited is education is part of this academy, is that it's accepted that education really has an important place in this academy instead of being something that's being told what to do by others. So I think we are going through a consultation phase. It is going to be long term, but hopefully by this time next year, it will be fully set up. It's half set up now, and we have a logo that we can show you, and there is consultation going on. But I think this is the beginning of maths education growing up and being accepted by the mathematicians as equal standing in research and practice. So we keep our fingers crossed.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Very good luck with that initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.